Hi guys, in this video we're going to be learning about comments in Java. We'll look at single line comments, multi-line comments, and also the use of JavaDoc, which is quite an important concept when we're talking about commenting our code. I've created a class called car, so you don't need to copy all this out, it's just something that I'm going to use as an example for writing out the comments. So this car class has state and it has behavior. It has a make, a model, the mileage of the car, so the current number of miles that are on that vehicle, and the remaining level of fuel. So mileage is in miles and remaining fuel is in litres, let's say. And it's got some behaviour, so the car can move forward, which increases its mileage by 10, and its remaining fuel decreases by 1. It can move forward by a set number of miles, by which the mileage will increase based on whatever you pass through, and the remaining fuel will decrease by a factor of 0.1 of whatever the number of miles is. In other words, if we move forward 10 miles, this would evaluate to 1. If we were to move forward 20 miles, this would evaluate to 2, so we'd lose 2 litres of fuel. We have a method to refuel, so we set our remaining fuel back to 50, which is what we set in the constructor. And then we've got a few getters. So get make model, which returns the make and the model with a colon, separating it, and get mileage and get remaining fuel. So let's start off with a single line comment. And I'm going to add a single line comment for the mileage, just to explain the fact that it's in miles. So I usually leave a tab, // mileage of car in miles, and remaining fuel in litres. Now, in a real life situation, you might not want to put single line comments for something as simple as this to further describe a variable, but this is just to showcase how you can use it. And I'm going to do something similar on the move forward method. So I'm going to leave some space and I'm just going to type out remaining fuel reduces by 1 litre. Again, it's quite a simple statement, so in real life we probably wouldn't want it, but it's just something to show what we can do. Now let's move on to multi-line comments. So let's start by adding a multi-line comment on the move forward method. And to do that, I'm going to / and hit enter on my keyboard. And then it fills in the rest for us. So now we can create a comment over multiple lines, whereas you can't do that with a single line comment. So let's start by giving it a description. The vehicle moves forward. And that's all we need. So we don't have any parameters, we're not returning anything, so it's fairly simple. So for the next one, we're going to do // hit enter, and you can see now that it's added an annotation, and this annotation represents the parameter number of miles. So this is an opportunity to provide a little bit more information about what number of miles means. So it's fairly self-explanatory, but I'm literally going to type out the number of miles, and I'm going to give the method a description. So the car or the vehicle moves forward. Mileage increases and remaining fuel decreases. And it might make sense here to just put that onto another line. Refuel, so // and I'm just going to say fully refuel the vehicle to 50 litres. Let's move on to get make model, so // and this time we have an @return annotation. So @return has been added because we know that the method returns something, it returns a string. So I'm going to say, so the return will be the make and model separated by a colon. And as a description, I'm just going to put get the make and the model. For the next one, /**, and again we have a return, so I'm going to add in some information for that. I'm just going to put mileage of the vehicle. And as a description, I'm just going to put get the mileage of the vehicle. And for the last one, /** again, hit enter. And for the return, I'm just going to put remaining fuel of the vehicle. And the actual description, get the remaining fuel. So we've added multi-line comments for every single method on the car class. Now we can add it for the actual car itself. So I'm going to add it for the class. So right above the class on line 1, I'm going to do /** again. And now we can add some information about the class. So I'm just going to type out represents a car with functions to move forward and refuel. The other thing we can do here is add some annotations. So you'll see here that we've got annotations at Param and at return. So this is part of JavaDoc. And JavaDoc is basically a tool that comes with the JDK, and we use it for generating Java documentation in a HTML format from the source code. So let's add a couple of additional annotations. So right underneath here, I'm going to do @author, and you can see here that IntelliJ will start to fill it out because it knows my name, so we can do author, and I'm going to put me. @version, I'm simply going to use 1.0.0. It's the first version of the car class that we're creating. And those are the basic annotations for the class. There are also a few others, such as @exception, where the method throws an exception, and we'll talk about that in a later video, as well as @c, @since, and @deprecated. And @deprecated basically means that the method is no longer used, usually in favour of something else. Now, there are guides online as well for JavaDoc, so you can have a look at those, and I will link them in the description, and they come from Oracle, and Oracle maintain the Java project. So within this Oracle documentation, you'll find some things like best practices, such as avoiding being generic in the description. So don't just say what the method name is, and this is probably a good example of it. We said the vehicle moves forward. If we were to be in line with documentation best practice, then we'd probably explain this a little bit more. Another one is being clear about the use of field. So we can have a field here, such as this variable make, which you'd also call a field, but you can also have a text field, in other words, an input on a user interface. Don't use shorthand statements as well, so don't use things like aka, e.g., i.e. Use the fully qualified name, so also known as, for example. And as well, make sure that method names start with a verb. So again, this is a good example. We've got the vehicle moves forward, and it doesn't start with a verb. Whereas things like get mileage, we're starting with a verb, so that's absolutely fine. And it's always good to try and follow these best practices where possible. And as I said before, I will leave a link to all these best practices because there's a whole bunch of information online if you really wanted to read up on it further. So there's one final point to mention here before we wrap up. We've commented every method in the class, and we've added a few single line comments as well. In a real project, you probably don't want to comment everything. You may only want to comment certain things that are particularly difficult to describe in the code. It's generally considered quite a bad practice to comment absolutely everything. It might indicate that there's something wrong with the code if you're having to explain further. This video was really just an opportunity to describe how you can use comments. But as we said, in a real life scenario, you want to be quite sparing with how you use comments and where you use them. Certainly using them on every single method, in every single class, would probably not be a very good idea. So that's everything for this video. Thanks very much for listening. I really hope you found it useful. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe.